A guy like you with such a background that's been through a lot, some tough situations, and both mentally tough, physically tough, and you wouldn't even think of you as being an emotional guy. But what's interesting is that one of the first things that you were coaching me on was when an event occurs, you recognize first the emotion, and you're very controlled about your response to that. With me, I applied it to email. So when I got an email, it wasn't on the battlefield, but it was something that might have made me
something that
nuts.
triggered you.
Yeah,
right?
And I would sleep on it for a day, and I would have my response calculated and methodical. Tell us a little bit about that and contingencies. And
well, so the emotion part is, I get the same reaction from everybody, right? So my process that I develop begins with an awareness. It begins in awareness of emotions and then the actions that you take, right? Because that's, metacognition, right? Be aware of what you're thinking about. Think about what you're thinking about, right? Look at what you're doing, because that's the first key to any real meaningful change. And we also know now that emotions literally do drive everything we do. They drive how we think. They drive literally the mind-body connection. We have an emotion. The brain literally sends a chemical down to the body. Now you feel that. It is science. It's not New Age hippie propaganda. So with that's where I start people, right? Understand your emotions. And really what I get a lot is that people feel guilty about having an emotion. And what I tell them is it doesn't matter where the emotion comes from. That's in the past. Sure, maybe someday figure out, maybe you had a tough relationship with a parent, and I don't mean this, tongue in cheek. Maybe you didn't get hugged enough, right? Maybe you didn't get told, and that affected you. Yeah. That's okay. It's still fairly unimportant. What matters is you have that emotion based on what doesn't matter. You're still having it. Recognize it, embrace it. It's okay to have the emotion. What's not okay is to just act on it. Yeah. That's not okay, because that's not what leaders do. Leaders make
an impulsive reaction as opposed to a thought-out, methodical response.
And you can't have a thought-out, methodical response if you don't recognize the inherent emotion that's driving that response. It just can't happen. So anger, right? Jealousy. Okay, you will act a certain way on that if you aren't aware of it. And then it becomes habit. You want to talk about the subconscious. You've just done that so many times, your body now just does it without your mind thinking. So somebody makes me mad, I yell and scream. I call you a name. That's just what you do now. Okay? When we say recognize it, and we say trigger emotion, that happens, action. That's what normal people do. Leaders do trigger emotion, we think and decide. What do you do inside of think and decide? There's a lot of things you can do inside of think and decide. The first thing, though, is you can't think and decide unless you've identified the emotion. You have to recognize it, trigger, anger, let me think and decide, what do I want to do? You know what, I think it's time I act angrily. Okay, do it. It's a conscious decision. Now you get to see the outcome. Now you get to learn about your instincts. You know what? I went with the angry reaction, and that went badly. I shouldn't trust that instinct.
You're aware.
You're aware. That's what it's all about, is the awareness. So the emotion part, everybody has the same reaction you do. I didn't expect that from you. But now we get it, right? You even said to me, right, and I really appreciate that feedback. You're like, well, really after we stopped, that I thought about this thing, like, I guess I really do need to kind of look at these things, just for more understanding and for nothing else.
What's interesting is some of these areas you're speaking about recognizing the emotion and then your planned out methodical response. There's an emerging field within behavior analysis called ACT, or acceptance commitment therapy, and that's mimicking some of those same areas.
Well, and that was the beauty of our relationship. When we started talking about these things, I would say, here's my process. You'd be like, oh yeah, there's a new theory, ACT, right? Whatever it is in the behavioral science world. I mean, it's fascinating.
Oh, absolutely, man.